right, can I get a motion to move back into open meeting?
Motion.
By Ms. Wood, second.
Second.
By Ms. Nickerson. All in favor? It is unanimous. All right, seeing as we have no blue cards, I will spare you the speech about what the open forum is for the audience, but we do set aside time as well for the Board of Education members to bring up any topics, and I'm just going to give a little commentary on this. So the board open forum should be things, perhaps feedback, things that we're hearing in the community that we either want to bring to Mr. Colabufo's attention or to other board members. But whenever possible, we should be giving Mr. Colabufo and administration the courtesy of telling them our kind of questions or topics ahead of time, because if we would expect any sort of answer or response, then we need to give them the time to do that. So just ask you, don't use the open forum time at future meetings. It's not an I gotcha time. That also is not meant to say that we can't bring up something that came up last minute or that we didn't have time to talk to them about. But that being the case, does anyone have any topics that they'd like to bring up on the board? Mrs. Nickerson?
Yeah, last board meeting, this was put in our packet, but I didn't bring it up then, just because I've been kind of bouncing ideas off you. Can you please give us an explanation of the increase in the instructional staff time and the later dismissal times at all the elementary levels?
I was hoping that you asked that.
Here.
I was hoping that you asked that.
I feel like we're back in
See,
school.
what Ms. Nickerson was talking about was the change from the 2016-17 school day information to the 2017-18 school day. Basically, this all started with like all of our decisions that really should focus on student achievement, what's best for the students. So prior, probably I want to say about 6 years ago, there was a change made to have academic advisement time at the end of the day. And so at 2:10 would be the dismissal for students that wanted to go home, which was over, I would say, 95% of our students at 2:10 would go home. And then about 5% would be able to stay with their teachers. Some days, some weeks, maybe that changed and it was a little bit higher than that, but throughout the year I went, the majority of kids filled the buses at 2:10. And again, I'm definitely not downplaying the need for academic advisement by any means. So we had a committee, we worked with the teachers, we heard what they had to say, and the district office level was working with the teachers. We decided we liked one of the schedules that they had created, which was going to be a temporary schedule for the 17-18 school year, and that we would then, the committee would then come to the board with different options for by January of next year for the 18-19 school year. But in the meantime, it put academic advisement time into the day, 29 minutes every single day. And what that basically means is students would be assigned to a classroom. We want to be creative on the rooms that they're assigned. So if they're in a, let's say, a higher level, let's say social studies class, that we want to be able to kind of link them with that teacher during that 29 minutes to avoid any hall traffic and the need for having pre-signed passes. So this would allow students to be able to make up PE time if they had to make up, or make up a quiz, or make up a test. Because right now it's 30 minutes, it's going to be 29 minutes. And in doing that, the actual instructional day now goes to, if you look at the high school, probably more, it goes to dismissal 2:47. Majority of students were getting on the bus at 2:10. So we're able to get a significant amount of time that actually equates to 13 school days of information increase of instructional data. That's huge. So what that did as a result, we had to then figure out how we were going to then do that, because the busing obviously then was going to change when all of our students were not going to be leaving. None of them were going to be leaving at 2:10. It was going to be dismissal at 2:47 time. So if we look into 2016-17, I know, Chance, you were, one of the questions that you had, school start time was 9:10 was their drop-off, and I'm calling student contact time because that's all the time from when they get dropped off. Because realistically, in all of these situations, instruction doesn't start immediate. Some kids have breakfast, and I didn't want to mislead people. So, this year, Cole started at 9:10 and went to 3:50. So the student contact time was 9:25 to 3:45. And what's really important is that people recognize Cole had less time than the other buildings, contact time. So now what we're looking at for next year is that we have Paul V. Moore. Well, since we're talking about Cole, we'll stay with that. So it's still 9:10. Dismissal now is at 4. So there is definitely an increase in student contact time, which is still all well within contractual time. So from going from 9:25 to 3:45 this past year, it's now going to be 9:10 to 4 o'clock. What we're also doing, and it was a good concern that was brought up, and it was saying, when are these students going to get home, especially in the winter months when kids are on the bus longer with that bad weather. We wanted to make sure of that. So what we're currently still looking at, this may drop to 3:55. But again, we want to be able to see how the runs are done the first month. We don't want to make a promise and say that we could be able to get all the busing done by making that change right now. The other really great thing that this does is it puts 3 buildings at the same time. Brewerton, Hastings, and MAG. At an 8:50 drop-off and 3:45 dismissal, that's huge for consistency purposes. Most districts, I came from a district over at ESM where it was different too. There were 4 elementaries, 2 started, the building I was in Woodland, started, I want to say like 7:35, but then there was another one that didn't start till 9, and so it was really difficult in that. This is definitely not as severe, which I'm really surprised. Yolanda and John Pierce did a great job because we have a district that's so geographically expansive. They were still able to make this work. So what we're also looking at, like in the situation with Cole, we're looking at the runs, possible consolidations of time to lower the time. And I shouldn't use the word consolidation. What I should say is looking at when the kids are being picked up in the morning. Because what we kind of ran into was a situation where students were being picked up earlier than they needed to be, and as a result of that, they were on the bus longer than they actually had to be. So I want to give a huge shout out to Yolanda and John Pierce for really looking at this to figure out if this is the case, maybe this, when the kids actually get picked up, which is not on here, can get pushed back. So then the kids have more time to have breakfast with their families and whatnot. But as you look, everything just kind of got shifted. This realistically could drop to 3:55. Yeah.
So what changed last year versus what we're going into? All the elementary buildings had 10 or 15 minutes between drop-off and quote contact time. What is changing that now we're able to drop off and begin contact time immediately?
Middle school. So we're going to be going first at the middle school and then the high school, which was opposite of what we're currently doing right now. So it's how they did it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Connie, when you were there, when did they do that before, that the pickup was switched before?
So how does that affect the morning? I'm confused. So the elementary schools, so let's just take Cole as an example. Last year, drop off at 9:10, student contact didn't start for 15 minutes. This year, drop off 9:10 and immediately student contact. What happened in that 15 minutes this year?
Here's the problem. This shouldn't even have been this. This is, and I addressed this before. It just got put on here. The bottom line was, yes.
What they did was when we created this, it was, we looked into
Your
where
microphone.
breakfast was, but now that we kind of gone through it, there's a lot of teachers who, some AIS kids get started to get told, like the kids take their breakfast and they go right to AIS or a resource where they get morning work when they get in there, so really their day starts when they enter that room.
So to kind of piggyback on that, Andy, it's because this used to say instructional time. So we were given a cushion of when instructional time could start. But some teachers would start right away. Some kids would get off the bus, they had the option to go to breakfast. And so by saying student contact time, there's contact obviously made. If we keep this like this should actually say 9:10. Contact is made once a student dropped off. We can't really say instructional time because some teachers, like I said, start immediately. They may have nobody in their class that does breakfast.
So, you're probably getting sick and tired of me
No,
grilling
go
you
ahead.
about this. So, to me, this is a reaction to an action that we had as a board previously wanted to fix a problem at the high school level. I still support that. But I feel because of that decision that we made, I do have a problem with these later dismissal times, especially, and I don't want to say especially, but I just know at Cole, that's a very large geographical area, and it's been an ongoing thing with how late these kids are getting off the bus. And we're talking after 5 already this year, and we're having a lot of parental complaints. And I understand that. I'm looking at the holistic picture, not just student instruction, but this is family time, this is parent time, this is after-school activities. It's
I
a
hear what you're
genuine
saying.
concern.
I think it's a perception too. Other people would look at this and say, should Cole have less student contact time than anybody else? What would really, that came out of the TES report is if we look at and we see their busing is a concern, then we could look at possible shuttle runs. Things that was put on the TAS report that could actually lower the time that they're on buses.
But then you're going to have people saying the opposite too. Like if CSI, or not CSI, HME, Brewerton, and MHP are all starting at 8:50, or, why can't Cole also be on that same? And I get it's a further distance. It's just something that I'm not ready to just.
Because where it's located is really what it comes down to. Because Cole is located where it is and where the North Shore picking up all of the kids, it just means that realistically, to put on paper, there's no way that we would be able to match up those times to pick up all those kids. But what we could do is what we're doing right now with Yolanda and John are looking at the potential of shuttle runs. And those shuttle runs aren't just for Cole. It's looking at where are the areas that are out there that we could lower the amount of times kids are on a bus.
And this impacts parents across the district. I mean, daycare, jobs. Not everybody works day shifts, so it's just something I just want to really look into.
It is 10 minutes that it is changing. But what I'm saying is this number could very well turn into 3:55. So then it would really be 5 minutes of a difference, which is pretty good to be able to have 4 schools in a district so far spread out that we would still be able to do that. So your concern, I'm sure it's a concern that other people have. I just want them to know that we're still obviously meeting in transportation, and we're looking at how long, because on TransFinder you can put all that in.
Right. Is there a time that we could expect bus routes to, not be set in stone, but just something to start looking at?
I'd say end of summer, fall, really, is with all kids still moving in. You have 2 kids that move into a certain area, it can totally throw off.
And what is the balancing point to go from 3:55 to 4? What are you waiting on that?
Aaron, you had explained that right there really well today. Why could it go to 3:55? And what my understanding in looking at this whole thing was when the other buses would then become available before that to be able to get there.
What Yolanda explained to me when I spoke with her again today to clarify was that with all the kids getting on the bus at 47 here, they won't really get out of the driveway. All the kids will be getting on until probably about 3:05. So by the time they bring all the kids home, get back to Cole, that's, the 4 o'clock piece. What we need to do is we need to see how
when they do, we will make corrective action.
And just one more question, I should know this. The high school, middle school runs, are those, say the Brewerton runs by this set of bus drivers, are those the same buses that handle the Brewerton Elementary runs also? Like, are they staying in the same geographical area?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. The majority of them do. I think that there's very few that.
My understanding from being down at the transportation center is they bid on a route, and they do that route for both runs, for the majority, as you're saying. So there are a few people that obviously are not perfect in that, but so they get to know where the kids, the roads, where the kids are, the conditions, all that stuff during, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we just need to make sure that the route really is 2 hours, because if it isn't, it's.
And that's what we've been.
And so then right, so I think that we're able, over the summer, we're gonna be able to see this, but then I think the first couple weeks of school, we're gonna then be able to say, we may need to have to add some shuttle runs to this, because nobody wants to be able to have kids, no matter where it is, whether it's in Brewerton, MHE, or Cole, on the bus longer than they have to be time away from family. But we also were running a situation very similar to high school, that our elementary kids were significantly in school less than across the county and the region. That's not good either. So this is really important, the student contact time, that didn't get diminished. So I hear what you're saying, and I think and anybody out there else watching this is that it's a work in progress, that if things pop up, we're gonna handle those situations. Whether that may mean routes, shuttle routes, or whatnot, and this could probably, when they start seeing it, match up.
Couple other questions in regards to this. So what I'd like to know is, does this impact breakfast, including instruction isn't being performed while students are at breakfast? Does it impact teacher preparations?
No. Everything is
And
shifted.
does it impact our transportation budget?
No. This does not impact our transportation budget. Again, we have to look to see if we add. The way that it was said to me from the guy, the president of TAS, he looked at the routes and said, you could still have this. You could still have the same amount of drivers. You can move things around. You can look at the routes and how they're being run to be more efficient time-wise. So as we get into that, we look at TransFinder and we put in. We don't put that the average speed is 20 miles an hour, which it's not on a country road. All of those things spit out data that basically says where we can look at that and where there's play. Regarding what you had said, teacher instructional time in breakfast, everything has just been shifted. So it's still the same amount of time of student contact time. This year, realistically, student contact time should have said 9:10. So it's not
But
like
it wasn't, because those kids sit on a bus for a long time in the morning.
Right, but that's when they actually get dropped off. They're not sitting on the bus. Maybe, and this is what happened, maybe they got there at 9 and sat for 10 minutes. So what we need to do is pick them up later,
Right.
so they're not sitting on the bus.
Yeah.
And those are all the things that John Pierce and Yolanda, she's been awesome through this transition. When we went from the share to John, she really stepped up. And she would be the first one to walk out of transportation and say that people coming to middle school, whoa, 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 you're really early. And she would say, let's talk about your runs here. You got to pick up those students later, give them more time with their families than getting them and making them just sit there. So again, and I don't put this on the drivers. I put this on the system that was developed
Right.
before, and when kids were picked up and when they were dropped off, and like any other department, we need to put time into this, like we're doing right now, and not just brush it aside. And we continue to look at this for improvement, because those are priorities. Students not being on the bus a really long time, that they have time with their families, that in inclement weather, they're not on the bus long periods of time. So what can we do? Because it's Oswego County. We know we're going to get bad weather. So what can we do to be able to maximize those runs? And that's what we work at. They're doing a great job down in transportation.
Okay. My question is, do the TA contracts coincide with all of this timing?
Yeah, yes they do. County can touch upon that.
Okay, because Right, well, my concern was I had heard from a couple of people that were concerned that the TAs get done 20 minutes before, or, excuse me, 5 minutes before the kids go out to the buses, so that the teachers are responsible for getting all of the kids out of the classroom and out to the bus.
Are you saying elementary?
Yes, elementary. Okay, so that's a concern for,
Yeah, but there's something put into the contracts, for teacher contracts, that says, I believe it's, is it 8 minutes? This is the odd part. Go ahead.
okay.
In their contract, they have to be not with students. So even though right now, good point, and again, that's just communicating that to the TAs, which we can absolutely do through email, and the fact that, yes, their time may end before the teachers, but the teacher's contractual time for 8 minutes, and what is it, in 10 minutes in the afternoon, that they have to have time that they're not with students. Right, so that answers the question, the fact that the TAs, them leaving at that time, the students are already gone.
Any other topics from others? I have a couple.
No, but that's not done for me, Tom.
All right, so just a couple things I want to bring up. One, at Mr. Burtis's last meeting, he made a point to mention about mental health in our district and his perceived need that we should really talk about. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't want it to get lost, so I'd like us at the next meeting, maybe we can have a discussion on that. I want the board to make sure that we are paying attention to what our student representative said, and if there's some sort of presentation we can get on what we offer, what we might want to be looking to change.
And I just want to clarify, he didn't say his perceived need, meaning himself,
no, not
meaning
his
it,
mental health.
but he meant what he felt the
As a
need for the
as a
district.
district, yes. And then the second one is for the board. I'd like to, if the board is interested and willing, we had TAS, which Mr. Colbufo mentioned, do a study. I think we got it presented maybe in January of this year. So if at our next meeting, if you could just come back, not present on the results of what we've implemented from the study and what we haven't, but a date whereby we could have that presentation. I think it would be good for us to get an update, because I think we ought to be verifying that the money we spent on the study has yielded something out of it. So if there's no objections from the board, maybe you can offer a date at the next meeting.
Yeah, we could absolutely look into that. It was great news that I got from Maureen that a significant amount of that was covered, was state aided. So that's good, and what we had paid for that survey.
Excellent. Yes, open
Okay.
forum.
Well, you know what, since you mentioned Theo, our new student representative will be starting soon. I think if she's taking a family vacation, I don't know what her first one is going to be. It's summer, but it's Reagan Parada, awesome student. She's going to be sitting in on as the student board member representative.
Mrs. Wood?
Okay. I have a copy of, and I know for the new board members, but every year I pass this out to everybody, the Code of Conduct for New York State School Boards Association, just so that there are things we know that we should do, we shouldn't do, and that kind of thing. And so I have done this for the last couple of years, so I have a copy of it here. I'll just pass it out to everybody. 1, 2, 3, 3. Oh,
Any
and
oth-
well,
any
sorry,
other
Andy.
items?
I just want to mention too, in the past, we have had board members go behind the scenes and ask for special reports of the superintendent and of our administration. That is something that we don't want to happen. If you have something that you need, and as far as a special report or something that you want to have go through the board, through the superintendent, that's something you need to bring up at a meeting and we all vote on it. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Great, so moving on, we're going to move to item G. We have G1, G2, G3, which I believe we can all take in its entirety if someone would like to make that motion. So Mrs. Nickerson, second by Mr. Loy. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. I get a motion for item H. In its entirety, which
Yep.
would be H1
Through 10.
10.
Yes. I'll motion that.
Swood, a second. Mrs. Nickerson, any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. I get a motion for item I in its entirety.
I'll motion that.
Swood, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Bedworth, any discussion? All those in favor? And I want to turn it to Mr. Calabufo.
Kristen Henry. I'm very pleased. One of our teachers actually came to this today. Kristen Henry is sitting there, secondary social studies at the middle school. Congratulations.
So which actually prompts me for a great question before we do our final piece of business, which is a question for Mr. Calabufo. Has the board in the past extended an invitation to all positions being approved on our agenda to attend the meeting and kind of a welcome and extend the offer from the board? Do you know?
Yes.
Excellent. So we're going to continue that.
Yes. 100%.
Thank you.
Continue to extend that.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn our meeting? Mr. Floyd, second.
We did have a lot of teachers who were hired that were on family vacations, given the time that we are.
Second? Mr. Patch? Going to assume no discussion. All those in favor? Meeting is closed.